To begin today's proceedings, it is my pleasure to introduce Kurt Sansone, Executive Editor of MaltaToday, who will moderate the third session, Advancing Ethical Governance, Strengthening Integrity and the Principles of Good Administration. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Anne-Marie. We are here for the third plenary session. Basically, it's what Anne-Marie has just said, advancing ethical governance, strengthening integrity and the principles of good administration. I would like to first invite the distinguished panel that will be here to deliver this speech and then have a conversation about this. And I would like to invite on stage Maija Stylianou-Lottides, the Commissioner for Administration and Protection of Human Rights of Cyprus. Thank you. Charles Deguara, Auditor General of Malta. Good morning, Maria. Take a seat. Sabina Aliyeva, Commissioner for Human Rights of Azerbaijan. Maija, Charles, can you have a seat next to Charles, over there, next to, this is mine. Maija Sakslin, Deputy Parliamentary Ombudsman of Finland. And Vít Alexander Schorm, Deputy Public Defender of Rights and Defender of Children's Rights of the Czech Republic. Good governance cannot stand without integrity, and I think this is a crucial point that is sometimes missed in the whole debate. It's okay for countries to have good laws, good structures, good institutions, but at the end of the day, all this will mean nothing unless the people who occupy those roles, the people who are entrusted with power to serve the general public, do not have the goodwill, are not ethical in the way they conduct their jobs. Because what would a good law be good for if it is not implemented well? If the persons who are tasked to implement it well do not do so. Yesterday I was at the reception evening, and I'd like to make reference to what the President, Miriam Spiteri de Bono, said. At one point she talked about the effectiveness of the recommendations that ombudsmen make when they deal with cases, the individual cases. And she made the pertinent point that the effectiveness of the Ombudsman Office really boils down to the remedies and how and whether these are implemented, which more often than not, at that point, depends on public administration taking on board those remedies and actually implementing them, and doing so ethically and responsibly. And this is the pertinent point that we will be discussing today, because this goes beyond having the good structures and the good laws. Before I invite Maija to deliver her first speech, I would like us all to spend a moment of silence. Today marks 8 years since the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia, a Maltese journalist, precisely at 2:58 p.m. 8 years ago on this day. She was blown up in her car by criminal minds. And I will ask you all for a moment of silence to remember Daphne and the work she did. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take my seat here. Maria, I'm going to invite you to deliver your speech. I'd ask all speakers to stick to the allotted time so that we'll have time to conduct the discussion.
Dear Mr. Joseph Maceo, dear President of the AOM, dear President of the IOI Europe, distinguished colleagues, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, of course, I would like to extend my warm congratulations to Mr. Maceo and his team for the excellent organization of this conference and for marking the 30th anniversary of the institution's establishment. Well, it's a privilege to join you today to reflect on a subject of profound and increasing importance, the role of Ombudsman in upholding good governance, particularly during periods marked by uncertainty, complexity, and social or institutional strain. Undoubtedly, we are living in challenging times, whether precipitated by economic crisis, migration pressures, political instability, or global public health and emergencies. We face circumstances that tend to expose and often exacerbate weaknesses in public administration. It is precisely during such moments that ethical governance, institutional integrity, and the principles of good administration must not only be defended, but actively reinforced. These are not abstract concepts. They are the cornerstones of democratic resilience, citizen trust, and the legitimacy of public institutions. As ombudspersons, we are aware that good governance is not static. It must be continuously cultivated through transparency, accountability, and service to the common good. In this context, the Ombudsman serves both as a watchdog and guide, as well as a critic and collaborator. Our mandate is beyond the investigation of individual complaints. The Ombudsman's role is to promote a culture of legality, fairness, transparency, and responsiveness with public administration. This includes monitoring the conduct of public bodies and ensuring that their decisions are lawful, proportionate, and respectful of human rights. Identifying systemic failures or patterns of maladministration that compromise the quality and fairness of governance. Issuing recommendations not only to remedy individual wrongs, but to drive institutional reform and build resilience. Engaging proactively with public authorities to provide guidance on best practices, particularly regarding transparency, due processes, and equal treatment. It is evident that ethical governance is fundamentally about integrity in public service. It is the moral compass that guides decision-making and action in the exercise of power. At its heart lies the commitment to the public good and to doing what is right even when it is not easy. This requires leadership that is both principled and accountable. In times when public trust in institutions is tested, when the gap between citizens and authorities seems to widen, and when accountability can sometimes appear negotiable, the Ombudsman stands as a resolute figure, impartial, independent, and committed to ethical governance. I would like to speak briefly about three core ways in which the Ombudsman fulfills the vital role. Firstly, by acting independently and impartially. That means that the Ombudsman operates free from political interference or institutional pressure. It ensures that investigations into public administration are conducted without fear or favor, allowing truth and justice to guide the process and not the agendas. Secondly, the Ombudsman provides a mechanism of redress for citizens. When individuals feel aggrieved by the actions or the inactions of public authorities, they must have somewhere to turn. The Ombudsman offers that refuge, not through lengthy legal battles or bureaucratic procedures, but through accessible, transparent, and efficient review processes. It reinforces the idea that governance is not about power over the people, but service to people. And thirdly, the Ombudsman upholds transparency and ethical conduct, especially when these are most at risk. It is often during times of crisis, uncertainty, or rapid change that ethical standards come under the greatest pressure. When shortcuts are tempting and when oversight and decisions are made in haste. In these moments, the Ombudsman plays a critical role in holding the mirror up to power. They ensure that rules are not bent for convenience, that information is not withheld for political comfort, and that the public interest remains paramount. By investing in maladministration and exposing systemic issues, the Ombudsman contributes to a culture of integrity and continuous improvement with public service. When specifically addressing the principles of good administration enshrined in various legal documents, it is important to refer to several key principles which are integral to the work of every ombuds institution. In a very well-functioning democracy, public authorities must serve the public interest with integrity, respect, and accountability. The principles of lawfulness, proportionality, impartiality, and fairness, as well as timeliness and transparency, form the bedrock upon which this responsibility rests. First and foremost, the principle of lawfulness mandates that all actions undertaken by public authorities must strictly conform to the law. This is not merely a procedural requirement, but a fundamental guarantee of legitimacy and justice. When public bodies act with the confines of legal authority, they safeguard the rights of individuals and maintain the balance of power that is essential to democratic governance. Any deviation from legality undermines public trust and threatens the very fabric of constitutional order. Equally important is the principle of proportionality. Administrative measures must be carefully tailored so as not to exceed what is necessary to achieve legitimate objectives. This principle serves as a restraint against administrative excess and arbitrariness. The principle of impartiality and fairness is the cornerstone of ethical decision-making. Public authorities must conduct their duties with objectively, free from discrimination or bias. This means that all persons are entitled to equal treatment under the law, and that decisions must be founded on relevant facts and consistent standards. Impartiality not only guarantees fairness to the individual, but also fosters public confidence in the integrity of administrative institutions. Lastly, we must emphasize the principles of timeliness and transparency. The delivery of public services and administrative decisions must be both prompt and open to scrutiny. Timeliness prevents undue delay, ensuring that citizens' needs are addressed without an unnecessary obstruction. Transparency requires that administrative procedures be clear and accessible, allowing stakeholders to understand the basis for decisions and hold authorities accountable. In summation, adherence to these principles, lawfulness, proportionality, impartiality, and fairness, timeliness, and transparency is not only a legal obligation, but a moral imperative. They ensure that public administration serves the public interest with respect, equity, and accountability, thereby strengthening the trust between government and the people. As we reflect on these principles, it's important to recognize that are not simply standards to be enforced retrospectively. In practice, the commitment to good administration requires a dual approach, not only correcting poor administration after it occurs, but actively working to prevent it from happening in the first place. This dual role is central to the work of the Ombudsman. While addressing individual complaints and rectifying maladministration remains a crucial function, the Ombudsman mandate extends well beyond reactive measures. It encompasses a proactive engagement with the very systems and cultures within public administration. For instance, the Ombudsman may issue thematic reports that highlight recurring issues of systemic weaknesses or challenges across various government departments. The objective is clear: to transform isolated complaints into sustained institutional improvements that benefit the public at large. Such reports are instrumental in identifying patterns that, if left unaddressed, could undermine public trust and effective governance. Moreover, the Ombudsman frequently recommends policy changes aimed at strengthening administrative frameworks, enhancing accountability, and ensuring that decision-making processes adhere to the highest standards of fairness and legality. Such recommendations often drive legislative and administrative reforms. In addition, the Ombudsman often initiates public awareness campaigns to promote the values of good governance, not only within public institutions, but also among the broader citizenry. These campaigns serve to educate the public about their rights and encourage greater engagement, thereby fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. Campaigns on issues like the right to timely responses to complaints or the necessity of impartial treatment have raised public expectations and encouraged greater participation in governance processes, because an informed citizenry is a power ally in upholding accountability and transparency. This proactive approach underscores the Ombudsman's commitment to fostering a culture of ethical governance. It moves beyond the reactive correction of errors to creating an environment where good administration is in the norm, not the exception. Ladies and gentlemen, crucial in times of crisis, the Ombudsman must remain a steady and credible institution, one that citizens can turn to when other systems fail. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, Ombudsman institutions across Europe, including Cyprus, played a key role in monitoring emergency measures to ensure they remain proportionate, lawful, and respectful of fundamental rights. Similarly, in the face of migration challenges or socioeconomic instability, the Ombudsman acts as a guardian of dignity and legality, calling for just and humane treatment and ensuring that administrative discretion is not exercised arbitrarily. In Cyprus, we have seen how our investigations, ranging from investigations to detention conditions to reports on access to social benefits or irregularities in public administration, have helped correct injustices, improve procedures, and restore public trust. Concluding, I would like to remind us all that the Ombudsman institution stands as a pillar of democratic governance, particularly in times of uncertainty and strain. By advancing ethical governance, promoting integrity, and embedding the principles of good administration, you help to strengthen not only institutions, but the social contract between the state and its people. Because good governance is not just about having the right laws on paper. It is about how those laws are implemented and coming to life, how they are applied in practice, and whether every person feels respected and heard. And for us, the Ombudsman institutions is both our challenge and our responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. I now invite Mr. Charles Deguara, Auditor General of Malta, who will share some of his insights from the vast experience in public administration.
Thank you, Kerr. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I convey my most sincere congratulations to the Parliamentary Ombudsman, my dear colleague, and may I admit with you, on occasions, even my mentor, I have to admit, Judge Emeritus Joseph Zammit McCain, and to his dedicated and competent team on this important anniversary, 30 years since this important office was set up. I have to admit with you that 17 years at the NAO have made me a very inquisitive person. So, according to a quick Google search, the traditional symbol of a 30th anniversary represents, believe it or not, the wisdom and patience that come with time. As you are aware, we need them both, sometimes in abundance. Moreover, I thank you, Judge Emeritus, for giving me the opportunity to share with such a distinguished audience some experiences and insights acquired at the National Audit Office on such an important theme. In all humility, I hope you will find them useful, especially since, at the end of the day, both national audit institutions and offices of the Ombudsman share common objectives and aims in defense of our citizens. Here, I have to emphasize what our Dutch colleague yesterday emphasized the need of support. We need the support of each other, especially during difficult moments. Thank you, my colleague, for making that point yesterday. One of the main requisites of every democratic society is that the general public, the media, and civil society have the possibility to examine and comment, I say, hopefully in a genuine manner and without any hidden agendas, upon the actions and decisions of government departments and other public sector entities, without being exposed to any adverse consequences. Thus, in my humble opinion, the need for ethical governance on the part of public institutions has never been more important. As a consequence, we need to ensure that the fundamental values of integrity, transparency, accountability, and responsiveness are embedded at all levels of governance, so that we would have a just, inclusive, and effective administration. As we are all aware, the absence of such values would mean suffering, frustration, and pain for our citizens. Hence, the need of our offices. Many public governance authors have emphasized that national or central and local government policies, coupled with their effective and timely implementation, shape the day-to-day interactions between citizens and public sector institutions. Yet, as reported by international organizations such as the European Union and the OECD, the phenomenon exists in many countries, and Malta is no exception, whereby a significant number of citizens perceive the competence and values displayed by public institutions as not always being in sync with the expected parameters of the common good, the timely delivery of public services, value for money, fairness and integrity. Without any doubt, these factors tend to impinge on the extent of public trust in governmental institutions. Thus, at a time when unfortunately trust in public institutions in every country seems to be decreasing, sometimes at an exponential manner, the obvious question is, what does it take to restore trust in public governance? In 2022, our National Audit Office commissioned a most interesting publication, State Audit in Times of Transition, to commemorate the 25th anniversary of its setting up as a fully independent institution, as henceforth guaranteed by our Constitution. I have no doubt that we all agree with what the book's general editor, Professor Edward Warrington, unfortunately he could not be with us today, stated therein, namely that the gradual disintegration of trust in the integrity of politics, public officials, and governing institutions is perhaps the greatest threat to human flourishing in the 21st century. Why? Because it subverts the only mechanisms that human societies have to provide leadership and undertake collective action on a significant scale. This is a very strong statement. Addressing these complex challenges takes us to the important area of public governance, or to take it a step further, ethical public governance. Within this context, the theme of this session, Advancing Ethical Governance, Strengthening Integrity and the Principles of Good Administration, is not only timely, but also underscores that for ethical public governance to move from principle to practice, adequate institutional, legal, and cultural mechanisms constitute sine qua non conditions that need to be duly safeguarded and respected by all stakeholders. As my colleagues has just said from Cyprus, having them is not enough. If we do not safeguard them and respect them, good laws mean nothing. Without any ifs, ands or but, without any exception. In essence, ethical public governance refers to the management of public affairs in a manner that upholds the common good. This is the most important consideration, the common good. Going beyond the compliance aspect, it focuses on the moral responsibilities of leaders and institutions in the management of public resources. Effective ethical governance ensures that citizens' trust in government is strengthened by decisions and policies that are not only efficient, it's important they are efficient, but not enough, but also fair and inclusive. In a nutshell, ethical public governance is about governing with values, not just rules and regulations. I think this is very important. Coming back to our question, experience has shown us that ethical governance is invariably a must, since there is no other way to restore trust in public governance. Entities in Malta promoting and safeguarding ethical governance. As in every democratic state, in Malta, various offices have been set up to exercise crucial oversight responsibilities, thus promoting and safeguarding ethical governance within the public sector. While each institution operates in an independent manner, their collective and collaborative, and I emphasize collaborative efforts, can create a sound system of checks and balances that reinforces democratic principles of good governance oversight. Hence, my strong conviction that cooperation between the NAO and the Office of the Parliamentary Ombudsman, as evidenced by tangible initiatives undertaken by our two offices, is a big step in the right direction, considering especially our common objective to enhance good governance within the public sector. Indeed, and I hope this will be my key takeaway during this brief presentation, it is suggested that you should actively consider enhancing the cooperation with the national audit institution within your respective country. Rest assured, it is very important. In Malta, besides our two offices, there is also the Office of the Commissioner for Standards in Public Life. The independence of these institutions, as well as the complementarity of their functions, is underlined by the respective framework, which requires each office to report directly to Parliament, essentially to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Together, these institutions have the primary objective of fostering a culture of accountability, transparency, and integrity, these being the basis of good governance. The Parliamentary Ombudsman safeguards citizens' rights by addressing complaints of maladministration, ensuring fair treatment, and promoting principles of justice and good governance. On the other hand, the Standards Commissioner reinforces ethical conduct by investigating breaches of parliamentary standards and potential conflicts of interest. Completing this important structure, the National Audit Office is mandated to ensure the proper use of public resources through audits of government spending and operations, thereby discouraging waste and inefficiency. Considering everything, I strongly believe that it would be much more useful that in our work and assignments, all our institutions are guided by the notion of service rather than that of power. As a consequence, I would prefer that our institutions are respected rather than just feared by the departments and entities that we audit. This is based on my conviction that if the right conditions exist, our mission is to assist them in promoting good governance with consequential enhanced service delivery for our citizens, not to simply report our auditors' shortcomings. This is a thing of the past. In the past, I remember that the main job of the audit office was to pinpoint fingers, to accuse. You did this, you did that. That is no longer the case. Today, it's important that when I said this, I was accused of being too soft. That I prefer the term, we advise departments rather than audit departments. Because we are there to help departments. They have to understand this. At the end of the day, I am more convinced than ever that it's all about identifying the necessary solutions together, and I emphasize together, in an efficient and timely manner, rather than adopting a confrontational approach that gets us nowhere. Here I quote my good friend, the Ombudsman, in his foreword to this conference when speaking about his office. Its strength is not laid in coercive powers, but in the moral authority of its recommendations, impartiality, and credibility. This, you are right, this is the source of our strength. The National Audit Office enhancing good governance and best practices. The National Audit Office serves the country as the country's national audit institution, or perhaps in more simple words, our public services external auditor. Our office is itself not only as the guardian of the public purse, but also, as highlighted in our mission statement, as a catalyst for promoting accountability, propriety, and best practices in government operations, core elements of ethical public governance. To give just a brief historical context, in order to strengthen Malta's state audit function, in 1997, Parliament unanimously approved constitutional amendments as well as a new Auditor General and National Audit Office Act that is in use till the very day. It has been nearly 30 years since this amendment set up the National Audit Office in its present format, instead of the former Department of Audit, which had served as Malta's watchdog of public funds since 1814. So the audit institution as a department was set up in 1814. As a consequence of these important amendments, you are right. As a consequence of these important amendments, the full independence of the National Audit Office was now safeguarded by the Constitution. So I will try to move forward. In line with our recently published 5-year strategy, Enhancing Audit Impact, we are committed to promoting transparency, stakeholder engagement, and public reporting, while upholding quality control and ethical principles in our audits to safeguard integrity and objectivity. This document recognizes that the National Audit Office must continuously evolve and remodel itself to maintain relevance and sustain public trust, essentially for ensuring its own internal efficiency as well as its effective contribution to ethical governance. I must emphasize this. We must be open to change. We cannot remain as we are today. That would be the end of our efficiency and effectiveness. The public service change, we have to change. New tools exist, artificial intelligence and so, we have to use it too. So we must be open to change continuously. So I will just go to the conclusion. In conclusion, the National Audit Office of Malta has consistently sought to navigate 21st century challenges by invariably focusing on the fundamental values of independence, cooperation, and accountability. Established as an autonomous constitutional authority, we have managed to maintain a relationship of mutual trust and respect with Parliament, the Honourable Speaker, and the leadership of the public administration. This working relationship, based on cooperation but not collusion, another important point made by Professor Warrington, enables us to work collaboratively with auditees, fostering reflection and follow-up on recommendations while preserving our impartiality and objectivity. This is sine qua non. This is sine qua non. Our impartiality and objectivity are of fundamental importance. As stated above, we have also signed cooperation agreements with other public entities, such as the Office of the Parliamentary Ombudsman and the National Statistics Organization, and are in the process of finalizing negotiations on other cooperation agreements in the very near future. Innovations such as performance and IT audits have expanded the scope of our work beyond financial oversight, offering deeper insights into policy implementation, institutional capacity, and long-term sustainability, which today is a sine qua non condition. These audits strengthen statewide oversight while remaining attentive to our particular administrative circumstances. By combining public visibility with discretion and impartiality, the NAO has sustained high levels of trust with its stakeholders and reinforced ethical governance by promoting transparency, accountability, and value for money in Malta's public sector, in the best interest of the citizens we aspire to serve. Thank you so much.
Charles mentioned we must be open to change and AI. That would be the subject of the panel after this, an interesting discussion. I now invite Sabina Aliyeva, Commissioner for Human Rights of Azerbaijan, to deliver her address.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Mr. Joseph Dammit McCain, distinguished conference participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I cordially congratulate Your Excellency and all your staff members on the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the Office of the Maltese Parliamentary Ombudsman. This occasion is significant not only at the national level, but also for the International Ombudsman family. I would like to sincerely express my deep gratitude for your contributions to the protection of the rights of all people under your jurisdiction and the promotion of transparency in state governance. I would also like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this esteemed event. I try to be short. The issue of strengthening ethical management and the principles of good governance discussed at this international conference is highly relevant today in terms of maintaining public trust at a time when we are facing new challenges. As is widely recognized, ethical management refers to a culture of governance based on the principles of transparency, honesty, responsibility, and accountability. This goes beyond simply following legal rules. It also calls for public officials to conduct their everyday activities with moral values such as impartiality, honesty, and equal service to everyone. Strengthening ethical management guarantees the sustainability of good governance and ultimately reinforces public trust in the activities of state institutions. The rule of law, respect of human rights, citizen-oriented services, and efficient public administration are all components of good governance. These principles work in harmony with ethical management, and the core mission of ombudsman institutions is to promote their implementation. The Ombudsman is not only a body that reviews complaints, but also a crucial institution that monitors the implementation of ethical conduct in public administration and bolsters public confidence in the fight against corruption. As Ombudsman institution, we also consistently implement initiatives to strengthen the principles of ethical management and good governance. In our experience, the work of the Azerbaijan Ombudsman is both preventive in nature and based on transparency and public awareness. In our annual reports, which are submitted to the country's president within 2 months after the end of the year and presented before Parliament, the names of state institutions, municipalities, and other entities, as well as officials who violate human rights or disregard the Ombudsman's recommendations, are openly listed, together with information about the measures taken in this regard. The annual report, which is also submitted to the Cabinet of Ministers, the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, and the Prosecutor General, outlines key observations and recommendations on ensuring the protection of human rights. Annual reports are also made public by being published in the official newspaper, Azerbaijan, and the compilation of legislation of the Republic of Azerbaijan. This procedure helps improve ethical management while also guaranteeing the Ombudsman institution's independence. In this regard, the Ombudsman has taken significant steps to strengthen the values of honesty, transparency, and good governance by submitting inquiries, proposals, and recommendations to relevant state institutions, as well as statements to the media. These efforts not only improve the accountability of state agencies, but also fortify public trust and promote the implementation of ethical management at the national level. In order to handle appeals and protect human rights, the Ombudsman has established comprehensive institutional mechanisms. Particular focus has been placed on the swift investigations of complaints received from the citizens and the resolution of these cases and the provision of legal support. Protecting the rights of vulnerable groups has always been a central focus of the Ombudsman work. This includes outreach through visits, monitoring and raising legal awarenesses among families of martyrs, war veterans, former internally displaced persons, migrants, and persons with disabilities, including children with autism spectrum disorder, as well as other groups. The Ombudsman Office also places great emphasis on promoting transparency and accountability within state institutions and regularly issues recommendations to support this. In the annual reports, these recommendations are specified by proposing measures to strengthen the ethical standards of state institutions, increase citizens' satisfaction, enhance social protection, and ensure accessibility of services. Promoting ethical management and the principles of good governance is a key focus of state policy in the Republic of Azerbaijan. The Ombudsman Office also plays an active role in these efforts. Our specific proposals, recommendations, and calls for improving national legislation, upholding ethical standards, and strengthening transparency and accountability have contributed to important reforms and to strengthening the practice of good governance in public administration. Subsequently, the Ombudsman's opinions and proposals were carefully considered during the drafting of the laws on the rules of ethical conduct of civil servants and on combating corruption. The Ombudsman's initiatives and recommendations also helped improve the mechanisms for enforcing these laws after their adoption. The Ombudsman Office has actively contributed to the implementation of measures outlined in key strategic documents, including the State Program on Combating Corruption, the National Strategy on Increasing Transparency and Combating Corruption, the National Action Plan on Promoting Open Government, and the National Action Plan on Strengthening the Fight Against Corruption. The Azerbaijan Ombudsman institution attaches great importance to cooperating with international and regional organizations, global networks of ombuds institutions, foreign ombudspersons, and national human rights institutions for the more effective protection of human rights, promoting of ethical management and good governance, combating corruption, enhancing transparency, promoting open government, strengthening civic participation, and learning from the best practices in fulfilling international commitments. Today, globalization, technological development, and new emerging risks make ethical management more important than ever. Although the growth of digital services offers new ways to enhance transparency and accountability, it also brings the challenge of preventing corruption and ethical violations. To address these issues, we make broad use of digital resources, initiates public awareness raising projects, and facilitates citizens' opportunities to submit applications. For the fostering an ethical management culture, improving civil servants' ethical behavior, and expanding international cooperation will remain top priorities in the future. Our activities show that fostering ethical management is not limited to fighting corruption and promoting transparency. It also includes new priorities, such as safeguarding human rights in the digital sphere, addressing the effects of climate change and promoting the active participation of young people and civil society. This approach demonstrates how ethical management and the principles of good governance are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, building public trust in government and preparing institutions to effectively handle today's challenges. Dear conference participants, this is no doubt that one of the main goals of ombudsman institutions is to uphold the values of ethical management and honesty. Without these pillars, it is impossible to speak about the effectiveness of human rights protection and good governance. I sincerely hope that close cooperation and joint efforts among ombudsman institutions will contribute to the advancement of ethical management and the further strengthening of public trust. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sabina. I now invite Maija Sakslin, Deputy Parliamentary Ombudsman of Finland. The floor is yours.
Chair, distinguished Joseph Samit Maija, Parliamentary Ombudsman of Malta, my warmest congratulations to you, your staff, and to your institution. Over the years, your work has been very meaningful in your own country, but also at international level. And this conference is an excellent opportunity for all of us to discuss together important issues. So thank you very much for inviting us, and I hope you all the best for the future with your institution. I listened to you very carefully yesterday and today. And you spoke about very fundamental principles. So I decided to speak about our very fundamental achievements, but also about happiness. If you allow me, I would like to begin with some words about my country, Finland. Finland ranks as the happiest country in the world. The World Happiest Country ranking is based on a question that asks people to evaluate the quality of their life. Finland has topped the rankings 8 years. According to the World Happiness Report, key reasons Finland tends to be especially happy and reasons that tend to promote high overall life satisfaction are, among others, the following. Firstly, strong social trust and low corruption. People generally trust their fellow citizens, the public institutions, and the government. Corruption levels are low, which means fewer worries about unfairness, injustice, or needing to look out for yourself in fear of abuse of power. Secondly, people perceive a high degree of political and civil freedoms, and there is a strong commitment to equality and non-discrimination. Thirdly, Finland ranks highly for the governance and access to high-quality social services. So, dear colleagues, my first argument today is that there is a link between the happiness of the people and the Parliamentary Ombudsman's oversight of good administration and fundamental rights. The oversight of legality and implementation of fundamental rights prevent misuse of power and promotes trust on the rule of law. This year is the Finnish Ombudsman Institution's 106th year of operation. The Parliamentary Ombudsman began his work in 1920, making Finland the second country in the world to adopt the institution after Sweden, which was mentioned yesterday by the President. According to the Constitution of Finland, Ombudsman shall ensure that the courts of law, all those who perform public tasks, obey the law and fulfill their obligations, The Ombudsman monitors the implementation of basic rights and liberties and human rights. The right to good administration is especially guaranteed as a fundamental right in the Constitution of Finland. The fundamental rights creates a legal foundation for the obligations for public administration and gives Ombudsman a strong mandate to promote the right to good administration. The adoption of the right to good administration in the Constitution was based on the consistent commitment to the rule of law and the desire to engage more closely with the tradition of access to rights and safeguarding of effective legal protection. But even before the constitutional reform, good administration was central in the Ombudsman's oversight, and the right to good administration acquired concrete and legally binding content through the Ombudsman's practices. The principles defined by the Ombudsman formed the basis for the later adoption of a more detailed administrative law. Dear colleagues, so based on the Finnish example and experience of the people's happiness and Ombudsman's overseeing good administration, I argue that these are closely interlinked. My second argument today is that when the Ombud institutions deal with maladministration, they are not only implementing the principles of good administration, but also generating the legal order and creating new fundamental principles. My argument is based on the idea of 3 levels of law by my dear friend Professor Carlo Tuori, Honorary President of Venice Commission. First, the law as a legal order is not only the visible surface of regulations, statutes, and decisions where we as ombudsmen act with our statements and opinions. Under the surface, there is a middle mediatory level of law, legal culture. Legal culture consists of principles, concepts, and methods which guide the interpretation and implementation of law and provides us the possibility to legal discourse, but also sometimes may limit some of the activities happening on the surface. Legal culture differs from country to country. However, I'm convinced that when we, as ombudsmen, look back and analyze our achievements, we can clearly identify how we, as ombuds, have been able to strengthen and perhaps change the legal culture. Sometimes it needs time, repetition, and new arguments. And like it was mentioned yesterday, we need to be strong, brave, and professional. Nevertheless, the change is there. The most stable level of law is the deep structure, which consists of the most basic principles like rule of law, fundamental rights, and the forms of rationality by which we think and argue about rights and law. The deep structure ensures mutual understanding and guarantees that our arguments and discourse is guided by truthfulness and rightness. In the deep structure, the law is open to morals and ethics. The deep structure provides us the fundamentals to our work. Our work at the surface cannot come into being without the legal culture and the deep structure of law. However, our acts on the surface as ombudsmen modify and generate the legal culture and the deep structure of our legal orders. And this is important. So, dear colleagues, my argument, therefore, is that while overseeing, monitoring, and supervising the administration, the Ombudsman is building the fundamentals for the whole society and for the legal order, and creates sustainable integrity. Simultaneously, the Ombudsman by him or herself is guided by these fundamental principles, being honest, consistent, and having strong moral principles. To conclude, whatever precise mandate the Ombudsman has, all ombudsmen have certain common functions and must respect certain principles. Through our practices, we all contribute to the evolution of legal culture and the founding principles, which are the foundation of well-functioning society, good governance, and happiness of the people. These founding principles are also the source of our power. Let me once more thank you for inviting me, and my warmest congratulations for your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Maija. I now invite Vít Alexander Schorm, Deputy Public Defender of Rights and Defender of Children's Rights of the Czech Republic. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I wonder how this machine works, so hopefully I will be able to manage the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so dear Judge Joseph Samit McKeon and your team, congratulations on both the 30 years and the organization of this conference. And thank you for inviting me. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with my topic. When in 2006, the first Czech ombudsman, Otakar Motejl, by the way, former president of the Supreme Court, formulated the 10 principles of good administration, he addressed a very practical gap. Indeed, the Ombudsman Act, the Code of Administrative Procedure, and other legal regulations required authorities to act in accordance with both the law and the principles of good administration, and tasked the Ombudsman with its monitoring. While not legal rules in the strict sense, these principles represent binding standards of high-quality public administration. So far, so good. However, nowhere did the law specify what these principles actually entailed. So after a couple of years in office, the first Czech ombudsman took the initiative and made this foundational step. He drew on constitutional and widely accepted legal principles, international standards, and his own experience from his inquiries. The result was the 10 principles of good administration, which outlined what was expected of authorities beyond what was required by the letter of the law. Each principle is accompanied with its explanation or expansion, although always just in one paragraph. For the sake of brevity, I will not explain this in detail. I've already heard many elements this morning of these principles, so it's probably no use to do that. These principles, in any event, created a clear benchmark for assessing administrative conduct, a reference point even where the law was silent. Inside the Ombudsman's office, they soon earned the nickname 10 Commandments. Over the years, these principles have proven highly effective. One of the most visible achievements is the improvement in the clarity and comprehensibility of official documents, instructions, notices, decisions, and their reasoning. By comprehensibility, I mean the clarity of the message these documents convey, usually the facts, the applicable rules, and their application, as well as what the addressee is expected to do in his particular case. Our intervention, for example, have led to better worded instructions on available appeal or complaint mechanisms. Another illustration is the admission instruction for prison inmates. Even if probably no one else here speaks Czech, just compare a part of the old instruction with the new version you can see now on the screen. I'm sure you can spot the difference with just one click of the eye. The Office of the Ombudsman was directly involved in the revision in close cooperation with the Czech Prison Service. The goal was simple: to reduce the number of incidents caused by inmates' ignorance of the rules. Clarity and comprehensibility now also appear among civil service evaluation criteria, helping to promote a culture of good administration. However, the principles alone cannot solve every issue. In matters such as remote access to files, which we have promoted, of course, legal limitations have restricted their use, while the principles encourage openness and helpfulness. Authorities cite, in this case, the lack of explicit regulation as an obstacle. Be that as it may, where the law is vague or silent, these principles often fill the gap effectively. But do they still work the same way after nearly 20 years since being engraved in stone by the first ombudsman? The world, and even public administration with it, has changed dramatically. We now have digitalization, online services, and electronic communication as standard. Citizens want to be more involved, and new forms of participation are emerging. Artificial intelligence is entering the scene, offering opportunities, but also raising ethical questions. We are more aware of the need for integrity and sustainability in the civil service, and we also strive to take greater account of the needs of vulnerable people. The original 10 principles cover these areas only marginally, if at all. That is why we are considering their revision, not because the principles are no longer valid or need to be replaced, but because time seems ripe for their update and expansion. The proposed amendments include several areas. Impartiality would also cover active prevention of conflicts of interest, with a particular focus on integrity. Openness would now also include public participation, gathering opinions, evaluating them, and providing feedback. And a new element could be sustainability and innovation, emphasizing long-term public interest, environmental responsibility, and the ability of administrative authorities to adapt to new conditions. You might expect that instead of 10 commandments, the number would rise to 12 or 13, if not more. In fact, we wish to stick to 10, and we believe we can manage. In any event, the 10 principles of good administration are not an academic exercise for us. The Czech Ombudsman refers to them in 1 in 7 inquiries and achieves at least partial redress in 80% of these cases. This demonstrates that they are a practical tool with real weight. To sum up, for 2 decades, the principles of good administration have guided the Czech Ombudsman in promoting ethical, transparent, and predictable governance. Now it is time to adapt them to new realities, ensuring they continue to serve as a compass for future challenges. And I look forward to hearing your perspectives and experiences in promoting good governance. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vít. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the first part of the session, the speeches, but I'm going to be asking you some questions. Otherwise, why would you invite a journalist to such a panel? Thank you. Let's get that. I'd like to start with you, Maija. You emphasized the Ombudsman's role in ensuring transparency and accountability. especially in times of crisis. But what practical steps can ombudsman offices take to make sure their recommendations are not only heard but actually implemented by public authorities? Because this seems to be the main bone of contention for ordinary citizens, especially the ones where are given their rights by the ombudsman, says, yes, you're right, you were wronged over here, but that's all they get.
Yes, let's start by... I need this.
Yes, yes. I think it's on. It's
Hello? Why? Well, I think we are lucky enough to have within the Ombudsman institution we have within the provision of our enabling law the follow-up procedure. That means that if a recommendation is not implemented by the authorities, we ask them to give reasons why they cannot implement our recommendations. And if these explanations are not justified enough, we make a consultation. We invite them to our office to give us more reasons why they cannot implement our recommendation. And if it's not justified, we send this consultation, the outcome of the consultation, to the Council of Ministers and also before the Parliament. So further discussions occurs, and you know, with mass media is taking a big role to addressing this issue, and the authorities are being confronted before the people and the Parliament and the Council of Ministers, and of course before the Ombudsman institution again, because a big discussion taking place in the parliamentary committees. So it's very pressure procedure that brings a fruitful outcomes.
Charles, I'm going to bring you in the picture, and I'll pick on what Maija just replied. You spoke about erosion of trust in public institutions, and the thing that this is not just about, this is about governing with values, your words, not just rules. Now, in your experience, what is the single biggest barrier to embedding those values in Malta's public administration, in your case, when it comes to what we were talking about here, convincing public administration to tag along with recommendations, to adopt them, to do so even expediently?
In my opinion, in our work, as the Ombudsman knows, we come into contact very often with permanent secretaries across the ministries. And I have to say that sometimes it's a question of personality and leadership. There are certain permanent secretaries with whom we enjoy working, even though it's a tough job, but we enjoy working with them. We discuss, we cooperate. The most important thing, we respect each other even when we don't agree. That's very important. That's a value in itself. Of course, then there are others who they are not always so receptive to change. They are always so defensive. In this aspect, I think if we have the best framework, legal framework, and enforcement, but we do not have a personal value system, I think we won't get anywhere. I have been harping on this theme so long. This is a fundamental subject that needs to be introduced in our education since very young.
Is the situation getting better or getting worse?
I think it's neither. It's the same. It's the same. Because if the people of Malta or whoever, wherever, we do not have these values, We do not share these values. That, for example, we need to give 8 hours of work every day. It's our duty. I mean, not doing your duty is a crime to me. It's a crime, but we don't speak about it. And we have to educate our young people, our boys and our girls since a very early stage, I think, that we have duties. This is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking as an Auditor General now. Within the European Union, we speak about the rights of everyone. With all due respect, and I agree. The rights of dogs, the rights of cats, the rights of... everyone has rights. But how many speeches we hear about duties? I haven't heard a speech about duties, I think, I don't know, in these last 10 years. But we have duties. Each one of us has a duty to the country, to the citizens, to the public good. I mentioned the public good. That is a concept that we need to keep in mind. Because sometimes we forget it. And I don't want to take too long because I know I'm very passionate, I'm very passionate about the subject, but when I joined the audit office, a wise person told me, Charles, you have 2 eyes. I said, yes, I know. He said, you have to keep one eye on the auditee and one eye on your office. Because we need to ask ourselves every day, what are we doing? Are we doing it in the right way? Do we need to change? Every day we need to ask it. Because if we assume that we are perfect, we know everything, that would be the end of us. So we need to ask these questions. So this is a value in itself, asking yourself, what I do today, can it be done better tomorrow? And I think this is very important. One thing, I am asking even our internal governance. Is our internal governance, because I expect good governance from the auditees. But what do I expect from my own organization, from myself? So we're thinking of even enhancing our own internal governance. For example, with the setting up of a board of governance. It's a big debate. It's a big debate. But in the United Kingdom, they have it at the National Audit Office. They have a board of directors, and it works. Because sometimes we have this, it doesn't work here, it's easy. When you suggest something, it doesn't work here. I mean, that's the first thing. But have you thought about it? Have you examined it? Do we have the courage of our conviction? As Nelson Mandela once said, do we have the courage of our conviction? If we don't have that courage, nothing will change and everything will remain the same. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Charles. Sabina, picking on the same subject, you mentioned culture a lot in your speech, the question of workplace culture, public administration culture, and the need for institutions like the Ombudsman not only to investigate complaints, but also to monitor ethical conduct in public administration. How can the Ombudsman Office balance these two? I mean, you're expected from people who come to you with their complaints to investigate that. At the same time, there is this outreach to engage, to inform, to teach people about what they should expect. The question of resources comes into play over here.
Thank you very much. First of all, I fully agree that it's our common duty to serve the best for our citizens. Doesn't matter we are independent body or Ombuds institution, national human rights institution, or the state services. This is our common duty. What's make us strong? My mandate, my activity regulated by the constitutional law. It's make us part of the constitution. It's make us strong. And if we have some problems with any state authorities, we invite them, we try to discuss with them these problems. If we speak about awareness-raising campaigns, for me, it's one of the priority activity of our office, but not only for some groups of, as I mentioned in my speech, for citizens, for children, for migrants.
even for state servants. And we make such kind awareness-raising campaigns for different groups. We invite these state authorities to our office and make awareness-raising campaigns, not only in the capital, even in regions. I have 4 region offices. Because sometimes they say, oh, we don't know about this. Okay, possible, but we need to learn together. Okay. And if we speak about the legal culture, legal understanding of what citizens want from us, we need to speak, we need to be open. And I think that it's very, very important, since the first step of our activity were not how I can say, not old, not so old. We're just 23 years old office, but we try to do this work since our first days of our activity. One point, unfortunately, my office, we have no right for legislative initiative. It is very important for our institution to have this right. I already prepared these amendments, but it's difficult because it needs time. It's not difficult, it needs time because it needs to be accepted by the referendum. It's take a time. But I think, because we are as a part of the constitution, but what is important, if we have this right, we can do the more and more and more. One more important, I try to be short, yes. After it was difficult, but we passed this way. We, Cabinet of Ministers, sent all legislation to our legal expertise. And when we say that, for example, this draft is not in frame of human rights protection, we prepare our amendments, and thanks to government, they accept most of them.
Okay.
It's very important, I think.
It's an interesting aspect. Maija, you gave us the recipe for happiness over there in your speech. I'm intrigued by what the Finnish constitution has entrenched, the right to good administration. How has this constitutional guarantee transformed the way public administration interacts with individuals on the ground?
Yeah, thank you for this question. We had actually 3 decades ago a constitutional reform, and we were introducing new constitutional rights to our constitution. And the main idea was that these fundamental rights shall be implemented by the administration. And this actually is what happened, because we have very strong obligation to interpret the law in accordance to fundamental rights. And this is what we do in our work. We guide the administration. We, even though that we see that they have not acted against the law, we can continue with our strong constitutional mandate and explain how it would have been better for the individual if they would have done that and that. So we can argument more. And what makes it easy for us is, of course, that we are very old, very established institution. So we are highly respected. But this, of course, is also an obligation for us. We have to argument in such a way that our arguments are respected and accepted. So there is always this interaction. We have to be very careful that we are professional. And concerning our constitution, we have very strong constitutional mandate, we have very strong constitutional tradition in our country, and it makes it possible to have the administration to listen to us. But if I may continue, Maria already mentioned the media, but media is also very important. We try to publish so much as possible our decisions, and the media publishes our opinions, and this helps that there are people, 5.5 million people in the country who report back. If they notice that the administration is not reacting, they report back. Of course, we also ask always the administration what are the consequences of our decision, what kind of changes they have made. So we wish to have the report from them. But it's also very important that people know about our decisions. And one more example, we now have new welfare regions. And what we have done now is that if we have a decision concerning one of them, we send our decision for information for all the other ones, so that they are immediately informed about our understanding, how they should act and interpret the law and the constitution. And I think this is one way to make them aware of our statements and then follow them.
Very interesting. Joseph, this might be the next development for Malta. Vít, you spoke about the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments, the 10 principles, and that you're carrying out a review of them. Is it just a question of sticking to those 10 and adapting them to a changed reality, or shall we see the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th commandment coming into place?
Well, as to the number we will see, but for the time being we really want to reformulate the 10 in order to keep to 10. Well, I think for us it's a matter of really updating, and because, as I've said, the world is changing and we have to take account of new phenomena. So it is important so that these principles also reflect that. And although for the time being it's rather an internal reflection, we certainly want to make it open to the, let's say, expert public, because also in 2006 the 10 principles were the result of not only a reflection, but we usually accompany this kind of things with events such as roundtables or conferences, so that we discuss what it is about.
The 10 principles are obviously important for the office to guide you when you're dealing with a complaint, when you're dealing with public administration. But how important is it that even the people who come to you actually know in black and white, can see what the principles you stand for are? Because that information, I think, is crucial for persons to understand how to frame their complaint, how to understand, listen, I've been wronged here, and look, it's clear over here. How important is that?
Well, of course, these 10 principles are known. I don't know whether they are really well known, or in general they are certainly available, and we record them in dealing with the administration, and they are available to the public. I would say that perhaps if you complain about something that has been wrong according to your opinion, it is perhaps less the fact that you qualify the situation in legal terms, you use the Constitution, the European Convention of Human Rights, and the principles of good administration. There is a feeling behind. And for us, the feeling that something has been wrong is enough for us to conduct an inquiry and then eventually find that what was at stake was one or even several of these principles.
And I think that is possibly the success of ombudsman offices around the world. It doesn't take complicated, that feeling is enough for a person to approach, and that approachability, I think, has helped, at least from the Maltese experience, people to come forward. And both the Ombudsman's office and the NAO, Charles here, are two highly respected institutions. When you get rankings of what institutions people trust. These two offices are at the top of people's. I'm not sure whether we have any time, Jürgen, to take any questions from the ground. I'm sorry about that, because we're running a bit late. I'd like to thank Maria, Charles, Sabina, Maija, and Vit for your contributions. I hope it has helped thank you, to frame the discussion. One point, I've never felt my human rights so protected as today, being here in this room with such a group of people, the wisdom over here that you share. And it is a glimmer of hope in a world where we hear a lot of bad news, to know that there are people over here who stand up for citizens' rights. So thank you as well. We'll break up this discussion, give us 5 minutes, and the new panel will be coming in with my colleague Rachel moderating. Thank you very much.